a small plane, 2 men, and a mission that was not only deadly but seems absolutely impossible today. The strange dream of a Las Vegas hotel owner, to keep an airplane in the air for not just hours or days, but months, without touching the ground. This wasn't just a matter of fuel. It's a story of sleep deprivation, the cold of December, and maintaining a delicate balance between life and death. But the question is, did these 2 pilots truly break this seemingly impossible record, or did their plane vanish forever into the blue sky? A strange incident from history that is now lost in books. Welcome once again to Dark Venture Videos, viewers. In 1956, a man named Warren Bailey opened a hotel in Las Vegas called Hacienda, which was quite different from the city's other big casinos and hotels because simple country folk used to come here. This Hacienda hotel was not very expensive, which is why common people preferred to go there. But because the profit was quite low, Warren Bailey kept thinking of new ideas for promoting his hotel. One day, his friend, an army pilot named Bob Tim, advised him that breaking a world record could bring good publicity to Hacienda. His suggestion was to fly a plane for not just days, but months without touching the ground. Warren liked the idea, but would it really promote the hotel or not? And most importantly, how would it be possible? It's important to understand here that when the airplane was invented, its flight time was initially recorded in seconds. For pilots and mechanics, it was important how long an airplane could stay in the air. With time, planes became more advanced, and their flight time also increased, and at one point, the matter came down to the fuel tank. That is, the bigger the fuel tank, the longer the flight time. In 1923, the U.S. Army solved this problem by refueling a plane in the air from another plane. After that, the first endurance flight record was immediately broken. The first world record was broken by a DH-4B plane by refueling it 9 times in the air and flying for 37 continuous hours. After that, a new series of breaking this world record began. America was gripped by endurance flight fever, and in 1929 alone, this record was broken 5 times. But when Bob Tim was giving this idea to Warren, the craze for this world record had significantly decreased because now it was not about the limits of the plane's engine or fuel tank, but about testing the physical limits of humans. Bob Tim was talking about breaking a world record that 2 Navy pilots had set in 1949 by keeping an Aeroinca sedan plane in the air for 46 days, and their objective was quite highlighted in the media. Hacienda's owner, Warren Bailey, liked this idea very much for promoting his hotel, and he requested Bob Tim himself to complete this mission because, after all, Bob Tim was a well-known World War II pilot. Tim first went to McCarran Field Airport, bought a Cessna 172 plane from there, and hired a mechanic to modify the plane for endurance flight. First, they removed the co-pilot's seat because if Tim had to stay in the air for more than a month, he would definitely need a co-pilot, and both these pilots would fly the plane in shifts. While one pilot would control, the other would sleep on a foam pad kept in the co-pilot's place. They also removed the back row bench. In its place, only an 8-square-foot storage was made where necessary items could be kept, and a small sink was also fitted in one corner of the cabin, so that sometimes a sponge bath could also be taken in the 4-foot-high cabin. After that, they also installed a 95-gallon belly tank so that in addition to the plane's wings, there would also be an extra fuel tank. An electric winch was also installed in this belly tank to fill fuel during the flight, which would be able to pull the fuel pipe up. They removed the co-pilot's door and put a folding door in its place, which would give easy access to the belly tank's fuel port. In today's era, hanging from a flying plane can only be seen in movies, but in that era, it was a common thing. Even until the 1950s, aerial stuntmen performed many such scenes where they had to go from one plane to another during flight. To make refueling as less dangerous as possible, A small foldable platform was also built outside the co-pilot's door so that one could stand on it and connect the pipe to the belly tank's port, and this platform was the only place in the plane where one could stand straight. Otherwise, inside a Cessna 172, there could only be space for sitting or lying down. They also made many changes to the plane's engine and wrote "Hacienda" in large letters on the outside of the plane, which was the most important objective of this entire mission. Now it was time for test flights. Test flights began in the summer of 1958, but problems started arising one after another. Tim and the first co-pilot he hired did not get along well. During test flights, they often disagreed on something or the other. The first test flight failed, the second also failed, and in the third, they had such a fight that Tim fired the co-pilot. The problem was in the exhaust valve in the engine of the plane, which was repeatedly overheating. They had launched the mission 3 times, but failed miserably. Moreover, while they were making their failed test flights to set a new world record, at the same time, above Dallas, pilots named Jim Heath and Bill Burke had succeeded in setting a new world record by staying in the air for 50 days in the same Cessna 172 aircraft. Tim solved all the plane's problems by December, and finally, on December 4, 1958, Hacienda. Officials from the International Federation of Aeronautics, FAI, were also present there, monitoring the mission. To avoid allegations of fraud, Tim and his new co-pilot, John Cook, took off and returned to the runway so that a chase car could put a special white paint on the plane's tires. If they tried to land secretly somewhere, this white paint would come off, and the world record would not count. After 12 hours, when it was time for the first refueling, both came over a predetermined road where a refueling truck was already present. As soon as the plane aligned with the road, the truck driver pressed his full accelerator. At this time, the plane had to fly at its minimum speed, which was 100 kilometers per hour, because the truck could not go faster than that. When Hacienda came just 20 feet above the truck, and both were aligned, the co-pilot threw the winch down. Workers in the truck attached the pipe to this winch, and then the winch was pulled up. This pipe was connected to the belly tank's port, and then the truck was signaled to turn on the fuel pump. For the next 3 minutes, Hacienda and the truck were exactly side by side. During this, if even a small mistake occurred or the speed of either of them decreased or increased, the result would only be death. When the belly tank was full, the co-pilot removed the pipe and threw it back down, and flew back into the sky for the next 12 hours. If they had to break the 50-day world record, this process would have to be repeated at least 100 times. Tim and Cook continued to fly over Las Vegas for a few days, so that if there was any problem with the plane, the landing strip would be nearby. But when everything seemed fine, they also started spending a lot of time over the barren plains of California. Fuel efficiency improves at higher altitudes, but the temperature also becomes freezing, and due to modifications in Hacienda's doors, its insulation was no longer good, so to avoid the cold, they decided to fly closer to the ground. At low altitudes, the views are good, but at night, mountains and clouds can also prove deadly. Both pilots had become good friends by staying together. They spent their free time reading books, exercising, and chatting. By taking advantage of refueling twice a day, they pulled up not only fuel, but also other necessary things like water containers, engine oil, and food prepared by Hacienda's chef. A question might be arising in your mind as to where the food they ate went, i.e., where did they go to the toilet? They had a folding camp toilet seat in the plane, under which a waste bag was attached. This plastic bag filled with waste was actually emptied over the barren plains of California. They never told us themselves, but the co-pilot's wife told it after his death. Now, Tim and Cook had spent 36 days in the air. They also spent their New Year's Eve in the plane, but the effects of fatigue and tension started appearing. Both were facing great difficulty in the small plane cabin. Their sleep was also not proper due to the sound of the plane's engine. One night, it happened that Tim fell asleep while sitting at the controls, and this happened just a few minutes before the co-pilot's shift began. Surprisingly, Tim did not wake up for the next 1 hour, and the plane continued to fly straight only on autopilot. When Tim woke up, the plane was flying at a low altitude inside a canyon in an unknown place. If Tim's eyes had not opened for a few more minutes, the plane would have crashed into a mountain, because the autopilot's responsibility was only to keep the plane straight, not to save it from obstacles. On January 12th, i.e., day 39, a serious problem occurred in the plane. The plane's generator failed, meaning now the radio, lights, heater, and the system to pump fuel from the belly tank to the wings would not work. The ground crew set a small wind turbine up, but it could only generate enough electricity for the radios to work. For the remaining days, fuel had to be pumped manually by hand. Due to the lack of lights, the refueling process also became very difficult at night, especially when there was a new moon. They solved this problem by tying a flashlight to the winch so that the ground crew could see where to attach the pipe, and another truck was driven 300 feet ahead of the refueling truck, on which a searchlight was mounted. Now, problems started increasing day by day. The plane's fuel gauge broke down, the tachometer failed, and carbon started accumulating in the engine. As the time to break the record approached on January 23rd, Hacienda finally started getting the publicity that Hacienda's owner, Bailey, wanted. Bailey had a schedule made of passing over every major city and published it in newspapers so that people could see the plane and cover this historic moment. Once, he sent a whole separate plane filled with photographers who flew with Hacienda and were able to capture some memorable pictures. To make this moment even better, co-pilot Cook also pretended to go outside the plane and clean the windshield. Newspapers published this picture, and the entire country started paying attention to this historic flight. On January 23rd, at 3:52 p.m., Hacienda broke the 50-day record, but with all the hard work and difficulties they had faced in breaking this record, Tim and Cook decided that they would not land for now. As long as it could go, it would continue like this, and thus they spent another 14 days in the air. Finally, the plane was no longer capable of flying any further. On February 7, 1959, after staying in the air for a full 64 days, 22 hours, 19 minutes, and 5 seconds, they finally asked for landing permission from McCarran Field's control tower and landed the plane. At the time of landing, a crowd of press had gathered, and people from all over the country had come to the airport to see this historic moment. This included supporters, record officials, journalists, Tim's wife and children, and the entire staff of the Hacienda Hotel. Tim and Cook were in such a bad condition that they were not even able to get out of the plane on their own. Officials also confirmed that the white tire paint was completely intact, meaning the plane truly remained in the air for 64 days without landing. In 2015, the FAI officially closed piloted endurance records because the risk of loss of life was increasing. This means that Tim and Cook's world record will now remain unbreakable forever. The Cessna 172, in which this world record was set, is still hanging in the baggage claim area of Terminal 1 of McCarran International Airport, telling its story to people even today. We hope that you will also like and share this dark venture video a lot. Thank you very much for your loving comments. See you in the next fantastic video.